Reproduction and life cycle of trout and salmon. Starting off first with the trout life cycle, we have eggs. Eggs take about 4 to 6 weeks to hatch. The next stage is elvin. Trout elvin have a yolk attached to their stomachs that they will feed off of for 14 to 30 days until they become par. Trout develop par marks on their sides and are approximately the size of your finger. The fourth step is when they become an adult. The last step is the breeding adult. Looking at our first diagram of trout, the first stage is the egg, then the elvin, then the par, the adult, and the breeding adult. Next, we have the salmon life cycle. The first stage is the eggs. Eggs normally take about 3 months to hatch. After the egg stage, salmon will become an alvin. Like trout, salmon alvin have a yolk attached to their stomachs that they will feed off of for 2 to 3 months. After the alvin stage, they become fry. Fry develop par marks on their sides. After the fry stage, salmon become smolt and start their journey to the ocean from their natal stream. After they are smolt, they become adults. Looking at this diagram of the life cycle of a salmon, we first start off with an egg, which then moves to an alvin, and then to a fry or a par, and then to a smolt and an adult salmon. Now moving into the reproduction of trout. Female and male trout lay side by side in the river. The female will spawn her eggs until she has none left. The male will then fertilize the eggs at the same time. After all the eggs are fertilized, the female trout will cover the eggs with gravel. The first type of trout we researched was the brook trout. The brook trout prefer to lay their eggs in small streams and ponds that have sandy and gravel bottoms and contain lots of vegetation. These trout typically lay their eggs in mid-October through November. When a female brook trout is ready to lay her eggs, she will use her tail to create a spawning bed, or a redd, in the gravel. These female trout can lay anywhere from 300 to 600 eggs. The next type of trout is rainbow trout. Rainbow trout lay their eggs in small tributary streams or in shallow graveled areas if a stream is not available to them. These trout normally will spawn around March and April. When a female finds a spot she chooses to spawn her egg at, she will dig a hole in the gravel called a redd. A male will then fertilize her eggs as they are being laid. After all the eggs are spawned, the female will cover her eggs with the gravel she dug up. The eggs are then left to fend for themselves for the rest of their lives. Moving into salmon reproduction, very similar to the trout, both male and female salmon will lay side by side in the chosen river. At the same time, the female fish will lay her eggs in her redd in the gravel, and the male fish will then fertilize the eggs as they are being laid. Our first example of salmon reproduction is the coho salmon. Like trout, the coho salmon will find a small tributary stream when they are ready to spawn. These types of fish normally will reproduce from early September to November. The female salmon will dig a redd in the gravel bottom and lay all of her eggs. Female coho salmon will spawn anywhere from 1,500 eggs to 10,000 eggs at a time. While the eggs are being spawned, the male salmon will fertilize the eggs. Very few eggs will survive. Both male and female coho salmon will die soon after spawning. The next salmon is the chum salmon. When these salmon mature to adults, they will return back to the water stream they were born in to spawn, typically around the months of March to the late months of summer. The female chum salmon will lay their eggs in gravel nests, where these eggs will stay for several weeks to several months. Now to test your knowledge, which location are salmon more likely to spawn in? 1, 2, or 3? The correct answer is 1. Our next question is, what one is a trout elvin? 1, 2, or 3? The correct answer is 3. Now that we know both salmon and trout need shallow, gravel-covered tributary streams or ponds to reproduce, looking at our tank in the classroom, what are some improvements we could make to our salmon tank to increase survival of the fry? Our last main point is the human impact on salmon and trout reproduction. Human activities such as impoundment, river transfer, drainage works, land improvement, afforestation, and deforestation can all influence the decrease of trout and salmon reproduction.
Other human impacts such as pollution and overfishing can also cause the trout and salmon populations to decrease. If water quality becomes too harsh for fish due to pollution, then they will die. Overfishing can also cause the populations of both fish to decline.